Hello, and welcome to the third and final episode of the Escape Gym Trilogy, a story I had written in the midst of my gymnastics career and hating it. As always, if you haven't seen parts 1 and 2, I recommend you go back on my channel and watch those first because there is a ton of lore and context you are missing. And if you ever want me to read your own story on this channel, please be sure to submit it down in the description in the link below. And finally, if you have already watched the 2 previous parts, thank you for coming back. Let's finish this story up. I'm super excited and you should be too. As a reminder, our main character Regina has lived on the gymnastics planet Athletica her whole life pretty much, and only now managed to escape and then only to die and end up back on the freaking planet with the coaches having forgotten her entirely, and she finds out that planet Athletica is an afterlife of hell. With that out of the way, let's get reading! And now I have died again. How is that possible? How do you die twice? The anger in me rose up. Dreadful words flew around my head. Stupid, mistake, dead, hell, forgotten, hated, unaccepted. My mood slowly started getting worse. Then Coach Salas stated, "No crying aloud. Rule number 28. Now go change in your leotard. You are starting in an hour." I started reading the packet. The rules were no surprise, but it helped me remember what I did in this place when I was 5. When I at last finished the packet, I still had 15 minutes till the start. I knew I had to go since I didn't want to go through the process. But then a thought struck my mind. Should I go through the process? It's painful judging by the screams during one, but after that, all the pain goes away. All of it. I would be almost free. After all, no one will care. Every day new gymnasts appear and new gymnasts have to go through the process. No one will care. I blinked and stopped daydreaming. I pinched myself for thinking such dark thoughts. After all these years, I will never give up. Never! I shouted against my will. Luckily, not many people noticed. Embarrassed, I looked away and wanted to leave. Buddy, why are we yelling out loud? That's actually so embarrassing. But anyway, I guess we are starting our journey out of Athletica all over again. As soon as I stood up, I remembered something I thought about that seemed like years ago, though it was only 3 days ago. I was imagining how I would ask the owner to a gymnastic competition for firing Coach Mac. And that was my plan. Exactly what I'm gonna do. But of course, not to get Coach Mac fired. That would be worthless by now. It's to free everyone here. I only had one problem, one I always had. I never met the owner and I don't know where they are. A new, scary, dangerous idea popped into my head. It was the most dangerous one I had so far. Escape. Again. The knot in my stomach started getting tighter again. I don't know if I could pull that trick again. After all, it was like 1 in 100 chances of the door being completely unlocked. And after I escaped, security and awareness was probably doubled, maybe even tripled. Bro, why would the owner agree to a competition where if they lose, they'd lose the whole ass planet? That seems like a bust. But escaping again also is. You literally said yourself that security was probably way improved after you escape. And again, with those useless little statistics. But even though the coaches forgot, there's still probably some sort of eye on you because I doubt somebody escaping was taken very lightly. Like, what are the chances of these minuscule chances happening to someone on the first time they try ever, and then happening to someone on the literal next day again? That's insane! I knew I had to do it though. That was the only way to meet the owner. Tears started forming in my eyes, knowing that this might as well be the end of me. Of me. Like last time I looked around, once again it helps me to know that I'll be helping all of these people. Even trying to help was enough to make me happy. I glanced at the big clock. I still had 10 minutes left before I became an actual member of the club again. That meant most rules didn't apply to me yet. That's a stupid damn rule, that rules don't apply to you until your first lesson. That seems like a recipe for disaster and a totally needless thing. And finally, I'm sorry, maybe I'm mean, but why is Regina trying so hard to help everyone here? We have not talked to them, we have not mentioned like any of them. There could be two in this whole gym, there could be 1 million, and she's like shoulder to shoulder with them. There is no mention of them at all, and she is risking her life so many times to save them. It's really noble, but there is just no build up for it whatsoever. That gave me 10 minutes to try all the doors in the gym. I didn't waste time. I stood up from my bed, my numb legs barely holding me up. Still, I started running. By the size of the gym I had in my section, there were exactly 20 off-limits doors in the entire gym. The thought of that seemed to give me a small speed boost. With me, I took some of my hand tape to mark the doors. Door 1, locked. Door 2, locked. Door 3, locked. Door 4, locked. Door 5, locked. Door 6, locked. Door 7, locked. Door 8, locked. Door 9, locked. Door 10, locked. Door 11, locked. Door 12, locked. Door 13, locked. Door 14, locked. Door 15, locked. Door 16, locked. Door 17, locked. Door 18, locked. Door 19, locked. At this point, I began losing hope. 1 minute left, one door left. But I knew that right things are rarely ever correct. What was I thinking? Gymnasts tried tons of times each and most never got into it. I got lucky enough to get into one. I got even luckier to survive, but the chance of me getting into a room again was unspeakably tiny. I got even luckier to survive. You did not survive, babe. I'm sorry. These insane probabilities could have been fixed with like literally any advantage towards her beyond just luck. You know, like if she learned to lockpick or used her raw gymnastic strength to break in these doors, then there would be some aspect where in her favor the doors would open. Door 20 locked. Duh! What was I even thinking? Then I remembered I had around 15 seconds to get back into my room before Coach Mack or someone else came to pick me up and start the practice to determine which group I should go to. I sprinted at the speed of light right before Coach Cheese walked in and asked, "Ready to start?" I couldn't answer no, even if that was the truth, so I nodded and stood up. We first headed towards the floor. Coach Cheese asked me to do some advanced tricks. Just as I got ready to do them, a great idea sprang up in my head. I'm gonna use the fact that I was forgotten by the coaches to my advantage. I am gonna pretend to be a beginner. The brilliance of my idea surprised me dearly. If they count me in as a beginner, I will have a whole month of twice as much time for breaks. That means I will have twice as much time to sleep. I felt relaxed and satisfied as I kept failing those tricks I learned years ago. It seemed so good to stop trying my hardest for once. Coach Cheese watched in dismay, wondering how such a big girl could not know such simple tricks even an 8-year-old could do. She then simply brushed it all off and led me to beam. It was sort of crazy of both Coach Cheese and the narrator to expect that just because someone is older, they'd be automatically better at gymnastics, despite supposedly it being their first time doing gymnastics. That is not the case, and that is an absolutely crazy statement. Really, I can attest to the fact that as I got older, I got worse at gymnastics. "You seem like a starter," Coach Cheese noted. I wiped my huge alligator tears and sadly nodded. Inside, though, my heart was jumping around from joy. I even thought that Coach Matt could hear it bouncing from my body. She showed me my results. Absolute beginner. Exactly what I needed. The standards for that level were 3 hours a day, every weekday, easiest moves possible, mini workouts during rest are optional, allowed to come out of the room during rest time, choose a single rule that does not apply to them, from number 11 to number 50. This was literally exactly what I needed. For the first three standards, that meant I would never get too tired as long as I kept trying my worst. The fourth one gave me the freedom to do almost anything I wanted. And the fifth one, I will choose so I couldn't go through the process. That's Rule 43. Any students who misbehave, lie, talk back, or are late anywhere will be forced to go through the process. Yeah, again, with the rules not applying for some reason. The process seems like the most important rule essentially, and for some reason they choose to include that in the range of what rules they can exclude themselves from, but not numbers 1 through 10, which I wonder what those are. Literally, what is the point of letting someone be excluded from one rule? There is no logic behind that at all. Why would you do that? The process is literally their most important form of control. Like, it's the reason Regina stated that she still has fear in her heart after so many years just because of that one process threat. And now they're like, okay, you know what? You're good, chill. You're good, bro. I wrote 43 in the blank space for the rule number. I felt invincible. I might have to continue being here, but at least absolute beginner is the absolute hot spot for me. Coach Cheese then commanded me to go back to my room. I didn't have much against that, so I turned around and started jogging in that direction. I decided to take a shortcut I was never allowed to go in. Passing near one of the doors on my way, I noticed a small number next to it. 21. That door didn't have the hand tape I put on the rest of the doors either. I tried to ignore it, but curiosity took over me. I jokingly tried to open. All the joking disappeared as the door swung right open. I just stood there, mouth open, eyes wide. My luck was way off the charts. Way off the charts. Yeah, it kind of is off the charts. Where did this shortcut come from that you were never allowed to go into? Why? And why are you taking it now? I am about to invent time travel to stop this atrocious story from ever being written. And also, very, very important question, why do they need so many teleporters in this gym? These perfects rarely level up to it, and yet we have like 20, 21 even teleporters in this gym now. And for what? And how do they keep getting unlocked if they are not in use much? Maybe this is a trap? The room had the exact same machines as last time, but in a different order. My anxiety rose by a bajillion times. My chance to escape. Again. I ran into the room and closed the door behind me. I locked it on the 4 locks and came up to the same keyboard. This time, though, I didn't need to waste all that time reading the instructions. Pressing on, list off, age keep, memory keep, I only paused at the many images that looked like Earth. The only differences that I noticed now between last time and today was the fact that I didn't have to hurry. I closely looked at all the images and started noticing things that made it obvious that it wasn't Earth. Some had red dots, some were way too small, some were way too big, others were a little square. I kept noticing and crossing the Earths out until one was left. One with no mistakes. That was the one I needed. I proudly pressed it. But instead of starting the teleporter and countdown, it started an alarm, a really loud one. And that's the moment I realized it really was a trap. When I heard footsteps outside the room, my heart dropped into my heels so hard I almost fell out. I felt like passing out right then and there. I lost my balance and fell. Right before losing my consciousness, the footsteps kept getting closer and closer and closer. Everything went blank. I couldn't feel anything, hear anything, or see anything. Okay, you know what? That was actually kind of unexpected, considering this story's pattern of being freakishly lucky all throughout it. Now we are getting some karma. Finally. Maybe all the coincidences throughout the story were controlled by some entity. Now that would, like, totally save the story if all of it was constructed for the little evil rebel, huh? I'm so excited! I woke up, confused. I looked around the room. It was filled with stuffed animals, toys, glitter, and tiny bright pink dresses that could only belong to a really young kid. The only thing that really bothered me was that it all looked familiar. Familiar yet unfamiliar. I scrambled off the fluffy bed in search of some clue of the owner. I looked in every drawer, every corner, even checked out the empty trash bin. I found no signs of where I was or who lives here. In no hope, I opened the window to get some fresh air, but as I was turning around to look for more things, something outside glimmered, catching my eye. In realization I hadn't even looked outside, I turned around again and peered outdoors. I almost had a heart attack. Outside was a lake. Not just any lake, a slightly horse-head shaped lake. My brain could not possibly comprehend what that meant. I was at home again. Home. The warm thought made me smile. Home. Unfortunately, the warm thought was ruined as soon as a question appeared. Horsehead-shaped lake is an absolute terrible indicator of where Regina is, but I guess it does get the point across with the fact that Regina is at home on Earth, and she escaped the freaking Planet Athletica once again. Where is everybody? I let subtle flashbacks to my life in this very house guide me to the front door and out to the lake. Nostalgia buzzed within me despite the lack of distinct things to recognize. I couldn't help but stand there facing the body of water which had taken my life so long ago and forced me into years of nothing but trick after trick. The horse head shaped lake which turned me into a goddamn pony. But the sun was all the way up, signifying midday. Its rays sparkled along the peaceful waves, completing the fairy tale moment for me. I wanted to stand there forever and let my memories of literal hell drown in this scenery. My heart beat with the live rhythm of true tranquility. Thoughts like how I still teleported here despite not being anywhere near the teleporter didn't bother me whatsoever. I must have. I must have. I teleported here despite not being anywhere near the teleporter. Not anywhere near. The thoughts cycled in my mind as I looked back at the house and back at the lake and everywhere all around me. The buzzing in my chest strengthened but no longer felt warm as I kept spinning, wondering how many strokes of luck I have really gotten over the course of everything. Barefoot and still in my leotard, I walked over to the lake in a panic. The water didn't feel wet immediately. It didn't even seem to resist at all for half a second before it was back to normal. I didn't care. I jumped in, stroking with my trained arms all the way to where I had perished so long ago. In place of water, there was a perfect cylinder of dryness right in the middle of the lake, right where I had always placed the horse's eye in my mind. And there, at the bottom of where the lake should have been, was an eye. Not a horse's, but a human's amber eye. The same one Coach Mac would glare at me with whenever I messed up. As soon as we made eye contact, the wandering eye smiled, and the scene inside the hole changed. The eye moved over for a nose and onto the clean, lipstick-lined, smiling mouth of Regina's old coach. Welcome to your new home, Regina. Oh, that was a bonkers goddamn ending. Sure, it didn't really build up to it, but if you go back and read this like little tiny Regina home sequence, I feel like it makes sense considering she was nowhere near that teleporter. And oh my gosh, her realizing that she's had too many strokes of luck. Oh, I'm like literally obsessed with this ending. And yep, in case you didn't hear, this is the ending. This is the end of the escape gym story. In the end, she never really did escape the gym, but I guess she did because she's no longer like doing the gymnastics stuff. Overall, the story was a super amazing ride. While it does have its flaws, especially with how basic and bland the main character is, I feel like the story itself with this hellish gym was really interesting actually. That's why I spent, the course of 3 weeks making this series. It's got a fair amount of plot twists, and while logic doesn't always apply, overall I feel like you could kinda see it play out in the manner that it did in the end. Please comment down below what you thought of this story because I think I've said my thoughts on it already, and that's it from me today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And again, my name is Sawyer Casper. Be sure to subscribe to see more stories. And I am saying bye-bye.